Ah! Decepticon punks. Uh, uh, hey, you! Freeze! Hmm? Yeah, you heard me. Stand down, Autobot! Hey, kid, listen to me. You don't want to deal with this Decepticon nonsense. I'm gonna give you this one chance to just walk away, kid. Walk away. Uh, Good move, kid. Good move. How is this possible? How could you defeat us? You're Cliff Jumper! Cliff Jumper's the Autobot that always dies! Don't know who told you that, Eight Legs, because Cliff Jumper always comes out on top. Hello and welcome to anyone and everyone who's decided to watch this video. Today, we are looking at the annual Target exclusive Transformers 4-pack. This one is just the Legacy United Versus pack. No fun title this time. It's just, hey, it's another one Autobot with free Decepticons, or two Decepticons and a Predacon in this case. And what do? They fight, because that's what happens in Transformers. No fun names here, but so far, this might be the greatest 4-pack they have done. If not this one, then the Worlds Collide original set. That one is pretty good too. But this one, wow, this one's just really fun. There's just something really good going on here. So we're going to look over all 4 of these figures, and we'll start with our lone Autobot, and that is Cliff Jumper. And of course, it is the Transformers Prime version of Cliff Jumper, which is a retool of the Legacy United Wave 1 Chase from the Rescue Bots. And what a great retool this wound up being. When they first announced Chase, they said they had some really cool retool in the works. And we were all thinking Lockdown, because this mold would have been a really good Lockdown and should have been Lockdown. But man, it works really well, giving us a new take on the Prime version of Cliff Jumper, which, you know, Prime Cliff Jumper is the paradox of Cliff Jumpers, because it is the coolest Cliff Jumper visually, but it is the Cliff Jumper that destroyed him, making him the guy who just dies like a loser. And, you know, it just ruined the character for years and years, and he still hasn't recovered, which saddens me oh so much, because I just love Cliff Jumper. I think he's a really cool guy, and I think Bumblebee's red brother, and I know him and Bumblebee aren't actually brothers in the canon, but I think Bumblebee's red brother here should get more presence. And, you know, this obviously is not a one-to-one to the car from Prime. It isn't a one-to-one to the car from Rescue Bots either for Chase. It's a bit of a halfway between the two. It's got that more sporty, modern look of Chase, but it invokes some more of that, like, retro muscle feel of Prime Cliff Jumper. It's definitely a good halfway between the two, and I like the addition of the little Autobot symbols here on his sides, on what I assume are his gas tanks. Why does he have 2 gas tank holes? Actually, no, there's the gas tank hole. I guess that detail was always just meant for an Autobot logo for Cliff Jumper, and they did remold him to have the horns on the front, which is a key feature to the Prime Cliff Jumper design. And, you know, the car just looks really good in this more muted red as opposed to the glossy whites and blues of Chase. And there's a very, very, very dark translucent black plastic. So dark that I feel like it just shouldn't be translucent anymore, especially because translucent plastic just isn't good anymore on modern Transformers. So it would have been nice to get rid of it. But that's like the one flaw with this toy, and it's just the flaw you kind of expect with Transformers nowadays. But other than that, Really cool looking car, really cool looking cliff jumper. Maybe my new definitive cliff jumper in my collection. Now let's bring him to the side and we'll focus on our Predacon here in the form of Tarantulas. And this is a repaint of obviously the Legacy Tarantulas based off the prototype colors of him that never came out, how his toy was originally supposed to look, where it was going to be a bit more real. Like, I don't know enough about tarantulas to know if there actually are any orange ones like this, but this is closer to a real tarantula than the purple and blacks and yellows that this character did become. And ironically, I was talking about Transformers Clear Plastic, that original prototype one. All of this orange stuff was clear, and this one isn't. But I actually, I think he looks great this way. I like the combinations. I wish, much like how the first free pack, 4-pack for Target had Black Arachnia done off of her old box art, how I do wish that was a different character as much as I liked it. Same here. I really like this figure. I wish they gave it a new name and it wasn't Tarantulas, because this is a very beautiful, beautiful version of the character. And honestly, given how bright these colors are, they could have gotten away with being like, this is an Autobot or a Maximal Tarantula, because these are kind of some friendly looking colors. I know in real nature, orange is dangerous, so that also works too, but by fiction standpoints, this looks more like a good guy than a bad guy. But, yeah, he's cool. This Tarantulas mold is really good. I feel like I didn't appreciate how good he was the first time around too, whereas like this one, I just feel the goodness right from pulling him out of the box. Also, I feel like I got better tolerances on this than the original, so this is probably my preferred Tarantulas, actually, even though I really like the old one. And also, I'm just glad these modern Spider-Bots can support their weight through the spider legs. I'm sure those ball joints will give out over time, and then they'll be drooping on the ground, but I love that they can stand up right now, at least. So yeah, Tarantulas, really cool, really good looking, nice orange, nice different variant of this character. So let's just take him away and we'll go to let's go with our other deluxe to look at, and it is Squeeze Play from the second set of Headmasters from G1, where they were smaller, or to go with the Japanese iteration, Cancer from the Headmaster Juniors from Master Force. And this is the figure that got people the most excited about this free pack, especially because the first of, I keep saying free pack for some reason, especially because the first of these Target 4-packs had Fangry, so now we have 2 of our free mini Decepticon Headmasters / Headmaster Juniors, and I'm pretty down with that too, because I'm a huge Master Force fan, and obviously Squeeze Play / Cancer here was a big character in Master Force. Now, he is a remold of good old Titans Return Mind Wipe, and I am always down for more Titans Return toys because I love some Titans Return. I think it is the best G1-based toy line of the modern era. And Squeeze Play, his mode never made sense. All 3 of the Headmaster Junior Decepticons are weird chimera things, but I never really got this one. He's like a crab golem with a cobra head. He's got a spiky tail, and yeah, we'll talk about the gun when he's in robot mode. We'll get to that really cool gimmick. But he doesn't look bad here. He can pinch his claws together, and that's pretty fun. I do think robot mode is far better than beast mode, but they were able to do a fun remold out of that mind wipe, and I do appreciate that. I actually think if we were to compare him to Fangry that we got a few years ago, I think Fangry
was the cooler remold, but at the same time, this one feels more different from the first release. And plus, it's been years since we got that mind wipe anyway. So it's like, it's fun, but I don't know if I'd call it the most impressive thing just because this isn't the most interesting monster. But yeah, and you can see he's got the headmaster sitting in there driving him. But yeah, overall, he's all right. I'm just glad to have another character from one of my top 5 Transformers shows. And lastly, we've got Tarn. And this version of Tarn is obviously unique because he is painted up to look like he did in the Cyberverse cartoon. And this reminds me how different he actually did look in Cyberverse, because I didn't really think about it at the time, how different his colors were, because he's only in that show for so long, even though it does get to stand out by being the final villain of the series, at least. And it's also just cool to see how far Tarn has grown in such a little amount of time in the fandom. Like, he showed up in those More Than Meets the Eye comics and just took the fandom by storm. He got into animation. He got to be the final boss of a TV show. He's going to be in a movie at some point. You just know it. Like Scourge in Rise of the Beast having the Terracon logo as his face. Definitely inspired by Tarn here. And, it's a nice shade of blues and blood reds on this version of Tarn. I actually think I might like Tarn better than the first release as well. Another reason why I'm really think this is the best 4-pack so far. But, he's the crazy sci-fi tank thing. I don't completely get how these treads work, and it's probably partly because of the gap that he has to have because of his transformation. But, like, he's got the one little tread up here and the big back tread here. Okay. And he's got his 4 cannons, and I like the touch of the snowplow cowcatcher that is his robot chest, although this part is always scary to me on my comic book Tarn, and I think a couple of times on my bludgeon this has always popped off. So far it hasn't popped off on this new one, like every time I've transformed him, so that's good. But he's another Transformers tank. Unfortunately, no wheels like most Transformers tanks, and you can see robot body parts underneath, of course. Turret can rotate. It's definitely a fun representation of the character. It does what it needs to do, and it just something about the darker color tones of this blue and red just really, really works for me. So that's how these guys turned out in their vehicle modes. So we gotta move on to the robot modes and see just how good those came out. Alright, here's Cliffjumper, and look at this. This looks so good. It just works as Prime Cliffjumper so well. The shoulders are a little bit different shaped. He's a little bit more squat. Boo-hoo. The only weird thing is the remolding of the hood to give him the horns has them on the insides of the ankles. That does admittedly look a bit weird, but overall he's still just so good looking. It's just proof to how definitive of an update Prime Cliffjumper is to the character. It's just works so well. And here he is next to Chase, and just seeing how this is also just such a good repaint, because these feel so different from each other. They both feel very distinct despite being the exact same toy. And it's hard to say which one I like more, because I kind of have to give it to Chase because it's a Rescue Bots character in the proper normal Transformers line. Admittedly, they did medics before they did Chase, but doing Chase means a lot more, doing one of the main 4. It shows that Hasbro is going to give Rescue Bots the respect it deserves. But at the same time, it's such a good cliff jumper. Because, again, Prime Cliff Jumper, terrible what it did to him fiction-wise, but design-wise, it is the best cliff jumper. There's just so much character to this design that works for who Cliff Jumper is supposed to be. It's really hard to say who's the better one. In fact, I don't think there is a better between these two. I think they are even. Now, we got to point out for Chase, for accessories, he of course has his lights that are on his arms, and he has his power-up and energize claw. And Cliff Jumper came with all that stuff too, but now it is in smoky gray, just like his windows and stuff. And, you know, they gave you the ability to take all that stuff apart, and they advertised taking the base for the claw and putting in the more square light to give Cliff Jumper his free-barreled cannon, which I was like, that's fine. But having it on the actual figure, I think it looks a little weird because it sticks out so far inward to his body. I actually don't like it. Like, I appreciate that we can give him one of his free-barreled guns from the show, but I wish maybe they just got rid of these weapons and let him have new ones for the free-barreled guns, because they were already remolding him anyway for his new head. And what I like to do instead is give him a 2-barreled cannon with the base of the claw, and then put the hooks, well, the claw pieces in his lights and put them on his arms as hook weapons. Again, one of the reasons this mold should have been used as Lockdown. It has built-in hook weapons. And I remember Hasbro saying something when they were revealing this figure about how it's like, this is giving him the horns he always talks about. And it's like, the horns he talks about for like 2 seconds in the show are not him talking about actual horn weapons. It's just him making a joke because he's got bull horns on his car mode and he's like a bull. It's not really meant to be anything, but it's a thing now. And you know, it's a good toy. It's a good update of Cliff Jumper, of the coolest looking Cliff Jumper. And that's pretty good, pretty great to see. Now, if we bring in Tarantulas, and here he is again with all that lime green revealed, and he's looking pretty cool here. He's got a Predacon symbol on his thigh, and he's got blue dots in his undies. And yeah, again, this guy feels pretty heroic. This looks like a heroic Tarantulas. It can still read as a villain, but it definitely feels like this could have been a Maximal. He's got the remolded head based on his robot head that the show never used in favor of his mutant head. He's also got this weird paint on his abs that really lightens it up and makes it look very spongy. So that's a bit of a weird choice, but at the same time, I kind of like it just because it gives some visual contrast. And we'll just bring in my regular Tarantulas really quick, and we can see like his legs, like really, especially the ankles, really like to give out sometimes. So I was talking about how this guy has better tolerances. So that alone is kind of making me like him better, even though this one isn't bad about the tolerances. It's just this new one, the box art one, feels a bit better to play around with. And I mean, they're both pretty good versions of Tarantulas. I'm also kind of a sucker for these kinds of colorways. I call them off colors. Just, it's the character, but it doesn't look like the character. So this is admittedly a toy meant specifically for me. But yeah, it's the Tarantulas mold again. Tarantulas has got a really good mold. And if it's anything like mine, then it'll be a better tolerance version of this. So, like, it'll handle better in your hands. So we definitely got an improved Tarantulas here, as long as you're okay with these colors. And maybe you just want to pretend it's some brand new character. Honestly, pretty good piece here. Pretty good. Now, Squeeze Play looks way better in robot mode than beast mode. I mean, beast mode was fun, but the robot mode is better. Although a problem I gotta point out with mine is the pegs that keep the hand in place are basically non-existent on this hand, so it comes off like nothing, like nothing. And I actually really, really like the remold job on him in robot mode. Has that youthful vibe he's supposed to have, especially in his face. That looks like a baby. He looks like a little baby-faced robot. That's pretty cool. He's got the stat bars here on his chest. I do actually wish those were painted in as a reference to the old headmasters. But like even his overall body, he just feels youthful and thin and lanky, and the colorways are pretty nice. The blues, purples, and the tans, they all feed into each other pretty well. We'll give him his weapons. He's got this shield bashy thingy that I'm sure was just what his original toy had. And then he's got this pistol, and if you don't know what this is Browning. Who is Browning? Browning is the second pistol from the Micro Change toy line that Hasbro never brought over like they did Megatron. But in Master Force, Takara repurposed it into a character called Browning, who was Cancer/Squeeze Play's little friend. So giving him Browning as an actual weapon, and I believe it does have the Microman logo sculpted into it right there. That's pretty great. A real nice touch. It's a very loving reference to Master Force, and I'm just so glad that Master Force is getting the love it deserves, because it is the best Japan-only Transformers series. And let's just quickly bring in Mindwipe so we can see the remolding and how much of it they did here. The legs, the chest, the head, even this arm piece is different. Definitely has a very different vibe. Like you can... Tarantulas just fell over, whatever. You can barely tell that they're the same figure. Like you gotta squint a little bit. Like you can kinda see it in there, the engineering, but like when you're looking from a distance, you might think that they're two completely different molds. And that is nice. That is pretty cool when Transformers is able to pull off something like that. And now the big guy himself, Tarn. And one thing I want to point out about these free packs is how cool it is that they include a Voyager figure in most of them. The second one didn't, but 3 out of the 4 of them have, and they still charge as if it is a deluxe class figure, and that is really cool. That's really nice value. And let's just get the comparison in right away with the first release of Tarn and just look at how different these two are. Wow. Like we each have our own thing, and I like the way this Tarn looks because it's how Tarn looks in the comics, and Tarn is just a great design overall, but something did always feel a little bit off about this one to me. Maybe he's a little too muted? I don't know. Like, I just remember finding this toy cool, but like something felt a little bit off. And this guy just has it with all these dark colors. Like I was talking about the blue and the blood red because that was what we could see in his tank mode, but like his purple is a lot more vibrant, has a lot more of what I would call true Decepticon purple, which is the purple I think Tarn should be wearing, because I mean he's got the Decepticon logo plastered over his face because he's like the most loyal Decepticon ever. So that's definitely the shade of purple Tarn should have. He's got that gold here in his abs. That's given him a bit of a regal feel, and the black instead of the gray for his treads and his hands, and even the much darker gray for like his thighs and his belly. Like, he just radiates evil. Like this, like ironically, because Cyberverse Tarn is the Tarn that has like an army, like that he's a generic robot, but this arguably feels more like the generic trooper, and then this is like the unique commander. That's what it feels like it should be. Like, it feels like this should be Scourge and this should be a sweep. Like, when you put these two side by side, this guy just, he's so much cooler like this. My only real complaint here is I wish his knee pads were colored like they were on this one, especially because the gold paint they used here is so good looking. I don't think he had gold knee pads in Cyberverse. They probably were blue. I'd have to rewatch it. But yeah, I really think he's really striking, and we'll just get rid of this one because we don't need him anymore. And even looking at the face, actually, yeah, let's bring the original in again for face comparison. It's just a purple Decepticon mask, and then this one's got the big Joker smile going across it. It's really cool. I really like it. And also for a bonus, they included the sword from the bludgeoned retool of this mold. So yeah, and it's not painted, it's in the pure purple, but that's fine because in my opinion, accessories don't need to be painted. I care more about the figures being painted. And Tarn with a sword, haven't seen that before. Does he need a sword? No. Is it cool for him to have one? Yes. And I really just think they outdid themselves with this Tarn compared to the first one, which is funny because we got this mold as Tarn, then bludgeoned, and then I would argue we got it as a better Tarn, and we got that new bludgeon coming out that's got like the green and yellow one, and I think I'm gonna like that better than the first bludgeon too. Like, so that's will be interesting if it happens. But I really, really like this Tarn. He really gives the vibe. There's just something really cool about this take on him, and I'm really glad we got him. Like, I wasn't asking for a Cyberverse Tarn back when the first release of this mold happened, but now that we got Cyberverse Tarn, I'm really glad we got Cyberverse Tarn. And I'm not even a big Cyberverse fan, but I'm glad it gave us this. I'm really, really glad it did. And yeah, so that's just me talking about this 4-pack. All great molds, all great toys that were good the first time around. That's why this is arguably the best 4-pack they've done so far. Especially because not only is it giving us 4 really good molds, every version it has in this pack is either better or at least on par with the first release. Like, you are really getting your money's worth here. Honestly, this, as much as I like the first one they did back in Kingdom, yeah, this really is the best. This is the best 4-pack so far, and if there is another 4-pack next year, which let's hope there is, because these 4-packs are awesome and we need to keep getting them. But if there is another one, it's got a lot to live up to, because this was just such a good set. Such a good set. In terms of favorites, I think I have to give it to Cliffjumper, just because Cliffjumper is my favorite character out of the 3 of them, and this is such a good Cliffjumper. Next, I would go with Tarn, just because of how much he surprised me. Then it's hard to go between Tarantulas and Squeeze Play. Personally, I think I like Tarantulas a little bit more just because of the hand thing on my Squeeze Play. But I do think Squeeze Play is probably the better one than Tarantulas, maybe. And, there is one more thing I gotta bring up with this pack, which was, it took me like a really long time to get this, because for some reason Hasbro Pulse just never put it on the truck. Like, I kept checking the tracking for this for like 2 weeks, and it was never moving anywhere. So eventually I just said, well, it's time to call customer services. Found out that Hasbro Pulse's customer service hold music is the season free Transformers theme, which that was interesting. And it was, but once I waited, it was an easy process. They were like, okay, we'll just reship it. You won't get charged for the new shipping. That's fine. Fine. It'll just like rechange the order number, blah, blah, blah. And then it came instantly. So that was nice, but it was funny because it's like I waited so long and I wound up seeing this pack at retail in the meantime. So yeah, but now I have it, and you know what? It was a longer wait than it should have been, but it was worth the wait because this is Oh, such a good set. Such a good set. Okay, I think I've rambled on enough now. Thank you all for watching, and see you guys around.
Behold, humans! It is the glorious Skybite, Megatron's mightiest warrior, here to recite a haiku to you all. Ahem. If you enjoyed, then you should subscribe for more, so the fun won't end. Thank you for the audience.